So optimally, a forward-looking company is going to have an innovation portfolio. What goes in it? Well, a creative organizational culture is itself just not enough. And an innovation pipeline that's linear can be too inflexible. So what you really want is an ongoing chain, a network really of internal entrepreneurial activity that lets you develop new innovative initiatives. So entrepreneurial events themselves are triggers that create more ideas, create a climate in which other people will have ideas. And it starts really with having an infrastructure that gives space to people to think and the resources for them to do their work. And this trawling idea of keeping track of what's out there externally so that you are keeping track of innovations in related fields, places from which you can draw analogies so that you can innovate in your own arena based on related ideas from really elsewhere. And so that, of course, you can keep track of what competitors are up to. So innovation, if you think of your own business, it can be just small core improvements to existing products that existing customers will take. It can be adjacent to what you're doing and expand either the offerings for those existing customers or begin to explore into new customers and things that are new to the company but really nearby. And then beyond that is a kind of breakthrough transformation where you're really just inventing utterly new things that don't exist yet and finding ways to offer them to the marketplace. So how would you organize the core portfolio? Well, really at that stage, you're looking for efficiency improvements or better tailoring your product or service to the requirements of the customers you already have, or looking at your logistics so that you can use your resources better. So those are bug fixes. We made the same product, but now it has rounded corners so you don't bump into it or it doesn't hurt your hand. This is the kind of, well, we have release 2.2, but now we have release 2.3. And refining events are low risk, and you should have well-known, repeatable processes already in place. At the adjacent level, those are expanding events. Those are development-oriented, and they differ from what was out there before, and those are more likely to be able to accommodate a shift in preference patterns amongst your customers. But they're higher risk, and they require greater investment, so greater tolerance for, well, we're going to take a chance here. This might not work out. So culturally, they're harder to do. And then at the transformational level, those are breakthroughs for markets that don't yet exist. And that is a way to break the mold from past results. It may be that an unexpectedly high level of activity is triggered, but it is also going to require new forms of activity, and it's harder to get done in the existing company. So breakthrough initiatives have high risk and high investment, but they have the prospect of high returns. Here's where a management tolerance for failure is important, and it needs to be conveyed. So yes, we take chances really needs to include, and sometimes what you do will fail and we won't fire you. Because if people don't grasp that that's true or suspect that it is false, nobody's going to come up with anything breakthrough at all. They're all going to take tiny baby steps in order to stay safe. And that's a culture that gets in the way of any kind of innovation. So you can think of this as a virtual portfolio where you're taking steps to improve what you have and to bring in ideas from outside. So the evolutionary kind of, we already do this, but we're going to do it a little bit better, whether we take input from inside of the company or outside, all the way through the transformational into the truly revolutionary. And you can conceive of this as a virtual versus a real portfolio where you have some ideas in a bank of, well, we could try this, but what would it take and how would we set it up? And then a more real portfolio of, well, these are actual existing innovations that could be brought to bear. And you can think of this essentially as covering the whole spectrum from, we talked about this at a brown bag lunch and explored blue sky kinds of ideas, all the way to product ready for launch. So upstream thinking is a way to characterize creative input and development of potential innovation ideas in a kind of virtual portfolio, a bank of ideas for later that you can mull on. And those are managed by champions of innovation itself. The presence of idea banks and a company that supports that kind of thinking can be a way to inspire and retain employees. That is, this is a fun place to work where clever people have ideas and I get to interact with those ideas. Can, in fact, be worth more than salary at some level. Virtual portfolios can be the long-range part of an organization's innovation strategy. Downstream thinking is a way to characterize these real portfolios, the result of innovation products that were launched as a result of some kind of entrepreneurial event. So a venture team may have brought them in or looked at them and decided that this is what we're going to do next. And they're an operational part of an organization's innovation strategy that is targeted to marketplace and user needs, which, as I have reminded you, you must always keep in mind. So if you look at the pipeline charts, which every pharmaceutical company will display. Just look for the name of the company and pipeline, and they'll be easy to find in a search engine. Pick a disease or an indication that is personally of interest to you, and you can see what drugs are currently in which phases of what kind of testing as they move through the many required sets of regulatory tests toward approval so that a drug can be made available in a marketplace. So that's an example of a real portfolio with defined stages that they're making their way through. And each of those brings value to the company, even if they're not yet all the way to the market. So innovation portfolios should be balanced between virtual and real, and however you label it, and balanced between internal applications where efficiency and improvement are the incremental things you're looking at, and external focus for exploitation of marketplace opportunity.